Okay, so this is going to be our spoiler talk. Now, we were non-spoiler because I wanted to do a non-spoiler one because we talked at great length. This is a very long video. Both of them were, or both of them are going to be. So, this is going to be our spoiler talk for all of the show up to this point and some of Game of Thrones. So, if you don't want either of those spoiled, this is not the video for you. You have been warned. So, just make sure everybody knows. I appreciate you all. Have a good one.
You're spoiling it! You're spoiling everything!
How could I not use that clip? Let's see, episode 1, what happened? So, King Valerian essentially is trying very hard to get a male heir. His wife cannot produce a male heir for whatever reason that may be. Now, she managed to produce Rhaenyra, but the others were stillborns or something of the sort. So she's pregnant in the first episode here, and he's like being celebratory and like, oh, I'm gonna have a son, I just know it, and all this other stuff. And she essentially dies in childbirth, and the child does not survive either.
To no one's surprise, really.
Yeah, honestly, they kind of made it clear that was going to happen.
Didn't think it was going to happen in the first episode, but
that's
just
true.
With the setup, with Rhaenyra being as involved as she was, and Daemon being as involved as he was, I didn't foresee it being in a situation in which there's a male heir, and all of a sudden, the show's over. There's no battle. This child.
this child gone. But
yeah.
On top of that, if the male heir is born, you don't really have a show, because at that point he hadn't named her as his heir. So
right, which he does in the second episode, or maybe at the end of the first.
End of the first.
End of the first is when he does.
Because that's how it ends. Is all the Starks and Lannisters and all them swear fealty to their new.
Right.
Heir.
Yeah. And that's the main point of the show, is based around Rhaenyra being the heir.
There's also this other character. King Valerian had, I believe, a sister or a cousin. I'm not it's hard for me to remember exactly which one she is. They said cousin, but I could have swore they were brother and sister, but I guess not. It was essentially, when he was crowned king, it was between him and her, and they chose him. And there's kind of this plot line throughout the show that they subtly, and sometimes not so subtly, but it's not bad either way, hint at, where they basically, it's the idea that a woman will never sit on the Iron Throne.
Not if the realm has anything to say about it, at least.
100%. And when you see how these people react to some of this, you kind of believe it. Like, this isn't one of those shows that tries to force anything in your face. This show very much makes you believe that is the case, and you're like, oh yeah, this might actually start a civil war.
I mean, it didn't go well in Game of Thrones. It's not going well now.
Nope. But this causes a problem with this show, because Daemon was originally going to be the heir if his brother died. Brother Valerian, I mean.
Viserys.
Damn it. That's how my day's going. Viserys. So many names. Honestly, that's part of my problem with this show, is it's hard for me to remember all the names.
Some of them I remember. The cousin you were speaking of earlier.
Yeah, what's her name?
Rhea, I think.
Rhaenyra? No, Ray.
No.
Ray.
I'm pretty sure it's Rhea.
Yeah, you're probably right. She's not really even in the show much, so I don't really feel bad about that one. But
she's not super involved, but she seems very interesting. Like, she seems like a very good character so far.
I have a little bit of a theory. I think she's the new Cersei.
I don't know about that.
Because she seems very manipulative.
Seems likable. She seems likable so far. Especially after the 5th episode.
That's true. You're right. My thoughts at the time in the episode 1 where she was talking to Rhaenyra, I very much got Cersei vibes off of her. and,
Yeah, she was being terribly
and,
rude.
and so I was kind of like, oh no, is this. Oh shit. No, but the main conflict essentially for the show is that Daemon was going to be king, and since he named Rhaenyra as his heir instead, well, Daemon's not very happy, and so there's a lot of plot lines that go about with that. While the king seems to be suffering from some kind of illness,
It's diabetes.
my brother is convinced it's diabetes. You're
It's
probably right.
diabetes.
You're
His
probably
wounds
right.
don't heal. It's diabetes. They didn't have treatments for diabetes back then.
But they had
And
fucking dragons.
yeah, they had dragons, but they didn't have treatments. I mean, they're still using leeches, so
That's fair. You're right.
no medical progress at all. I mean,
That's
you can
true.
do spells, but they don't know that yet.
You're
I
right.
mean, at least not the crown.
Lady
But
Melisandre needs to come help the king.
little support to my claim here. Spoilers for episode 5. When does the king fall? As if he's dead, maybe. We don't know yet, but he does it right after he eats a giant meal. A giant meal with no insulin.
That's a good point.
It's diabetes.
That is a good point. But yeah, it's pretty clear early on. Me and my brother even talked about this. It's that man's not surviving this season.
Viserys is dead.
There's a 0% chance Viserys actually survives. Like, there's just no way. I called that from the very beginning, and so did he. There's just no way.
I thought he was going to be gone in episode 3.
I did too. I'm surprised he's still here. But no, so episode 2, remind me, because they kind of blend together for me a little bit. Remind me exactly what happened in episode 2.
Yeah. 1, 2, and 3 also, they all blend together for me. So I'm not really sure exactly where the differentiation is. I do remember learning more about Otto Hightower in episode 2 when you learn more about his daughter Alicent Hightower, who later becomes queen.
Yeah, it's about the marriage proposal and Daemon wanting to go to the Stepstones.
Yes, and that's when they introduced the Crab Feeder as well, was in episode 2. Not that the Crab Feeder is as big of a character as I really thought he was going to be, but
I don't know why you thought he was going to be.
Cool.
I mean,
I thought he was going to be cool. He looked like a real threat.
He still looked cool. I mean, to be fair, it took Daemon like 6 months to kill him. 6 months in a shitty letter from his brother that he didn't like.
10 minutes of screen time.
Essentially. And that's part of my slight irritation with this show, is the time jumps are a little much sometimes. Not that they're bad, because I feel like the show's still being told at a good pace, and people keep telling me who have read the books, they're like, oh man, if you know what happens next in Fire and Blood, you know why they're skipping to it. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, but there better be a good payoff. And I think there's gonna be, because of what happens in episode 5. But no, in episode 2, Viserys essentially gets manipulated into marrying Alicent Hightower, which is the daughter of the Hand of the King. And the Hand of the King is kind of creepy. Like, I don't completely hate him or anything, but like, he totally tried to get his daughter to fuck the king. Like,
Otto definitely gives off sneaky vibes.
He gives off like Littlefinger light vibes.
Yeah.
Not as bad.
Less interesting.
Yeah, less interesting. I definitely prefer Littlefinger of the two.
Less good looking.
100%. That man's dope. I love Littlefinger. Kind of shocking. Well, no, that's a spoiler for Game of Thrones. You know what? No, if you're watching this, you've already probably seen Game of Thrones, so this is also spoilers for Game of Thrones. I'm just gonna say that now. It shocks me how long it took Littlefinger to die in that show.
He was hated.
He was hated,
for sure. Of people.
But like the last 2 seasons, he just like didn't really do anything, so it's kind of weird that he stayed around that long. Um, but no. So basically, by the end, after Damon has his little um, temper tantrum, he essentially decides to go to Lord Corlys Valerian, who, if I'm not mistaken, right, I'm trying to remember now exactly. So he tried to marry his daughter off. What was her name? Leia. What Lay? What was her name? You remember?
I don't remember exactly. She's in the most recent episode as well.
That's true. She's a lot older in the new one,
That's true.
which is kind of funny because Rhaenyra keeps the same actress, and she doesn't look that much older, really. So it's just kind of funny that like this girl.
Small issue.
Hmm?
This is just my own personal opinion, but it
Right.
really bugs me sometimes how young Rhaenyra looks. With her hair down, she looks like an adult, but when she pulls her hair up, she really looks like she's 12.
She's only a couple years younger than me. I know that's shocking,
I
but
know
it's true.
the actress is definitely of age, and Rhaenyra at the time is supposed to be of age. I think she's supposed to be 17,
Mm-hmm.
but she looks like she's 12. She just
Right.
does. When she pulls her hair up, she looks very young, and in the later episodes, that can make for some minorly uncomfy scenes.
Yep, we're gonna get to that very soon, because essentially, to wrap it up for episode 2, at the end, Damon, after having his tantrum, basically goes to Lord Corlys, and Corlys basically tells him that there's the enemy in the Stepstones that the king is ignoring. The crab feeder, as you mentioned already, is becoming a damn problem, and if you want to prove that you're worthy of being king, then you should take care of it. And take care of it he does, because we're going to talk about that now. That was a damn good fight. That was cool.
Now, I believe that actually took a little bit longer than a few months, because I believe the time jump was 3 years between episode 2 and 3. Because last you see, Alicent Hightower is getting married to the king at the end of episode 2, and Daemon and the leader of House Valerian are talking about the crab feeder. And then episode 3 begins, and Alicent Hightower is pregnant with the king's son. Had the king's son already?
Right. And
Is it like at the beginning of the episode, or just
Right.
like
No,
the
it
son
was-
was already born?
I think it was already born, yeah.
Second or third. It was a 3-year jump.
Right.
So,
I think there was
kid
one
had to
kid
be
already
about
born.
3.
I think there's one kid already born, and I think she was pregnant.
Pregnant with a second. That's
With a
what it
second.
was. Yep.
Because she had
You
a
are
big stomach the whole time. And so I
Yeah.
was like, okay, so it's a good amount of time. I could tell that
Yeah.
already.
It was the second birthday. Second name day.
Right, which is a big problem for Rhaenyra because she was not a fan of that decision by her father.
Everybody was under the impression that the male heir, who is Aegon, isn't it?
Yeah, because they keep naming their sons Aegon.
They're all Aegon. They're all Aegon.
Eventually they were right. Eventually they got it. The prince who was promised was Aegon Targaryen, just eventually.
Yep, just keep naming them Aegon. They're all Aegon Targaryen.
Eventually you'll
point.
be right. You're breeding like cool dragon riders. Eventually one of them's going to take over the world. Why not?
I mean, technically the first one did. So
that's.
You know.
I want a show about that. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I was thinking about that as I was watching the most recent episode. It would be
this
fun
man
to
was
watch.
supposed to be a damn near a god. This man had like 3 dragons or something just for himself. Like
yeah, we've seen that before though.
True, but this dude like actually conquered everywhere, and all this other stuff. It's
so did Daenerys, kind of.
That's true, but again, we're talking spoilers. Daenerys has a shitty ending to her character arc, though.
But wouldn't have been shitty if he stretched it out among 3 seasons.
Exactly. That's almost 100% my problem. I just don't buy that she goes from being in love with Jon Snow and all this other stuff to fucking psycho killer in like 2 episodes. I just don't buy it.
Yep. Yep, it was way too quick of a turnaround. And Game of Thrones was known for its long game with the character progressions, and they did not do that with Daenerys, and it did not go well.
Yeah. But there's not a whole lot that happens really in episode 3 until near the end. There's a lot of like political discussions. King Viserys is trying to set up um, Rhaenyra with a husband. Talks to Jacob Lannister at one point, and
Jason.
that Jason. Sorry, I apologize. And that was a really funny interaction, and I love that he shows up again in episode 5. And guy is such a prick, but
Yeah, he's a huge douche.
he really is just the worst. And
Lannister special.
it really is that and incest.
Yeah.
Speaking
sure
of which, we're gonna get to that in a minute. But essentially, it's a big bit of tension, right? Because Rhaenyra and her best friend marries her dad. That would fuck me up too.
Yeah, that would be awful. And then at the end of episode 3 with the fight with the crab feeder, that fight was absolutely fantastic. It was probably the best battle scene we're gonna get in the first season. If I had to guess, Game of Thrones is just as much a drama as it is a fantasy show, so you don't always get as much of the war-looking battles, not the way that you do in some other things.
Man, that fight was phenomenal.
And do not be confused. House Valerian doesn't just have a dragon for no reason. Do not forget that the Corlys married Viserys' cousin, and after they had a child, their child is actually, well, the cousin and their child are the ones with dragons. So we're not just giving them out to House Valerian. I was very confused about that at first. I actually thought because they were both houses of Old Valyria that the Valerians already had dragons, and I was wrong. But I thought for a moment that there were two houses with dragons.
I thought so too, and I was a little confused by that at first as well.
But and I also was unaware of the fact that there's literally some sort of magical bind between dragon and rider, very similar to that of Aragon. Not the same, but similar.
Right.
That's why the Targaryens can ride dragons, but nobody else can, is because that magic is within their bloodline. So that's why only Targaryens have dragons.
That also explains a lot about their culture with dragons, because they talk about how like they put a dragon egg in a baby's crib so they can bond.
Yep.
And stuff like that. And it makes it more interesting later as a viewer, because in Game of Thrones, like season 7 and 8, you start to see this dragon be more interested in Jon Snow. They let him ride him, and he just keeps staring at him as if he knows that there's something there.
That's interesting as well, because in Game of Thrones, it is just Daenerys and Jon Snow that ride dragons, correct?
They're always the ones in the lead of the dragons. They did give people rides once or twice, but like they're the rider. They just happen to have passengers. So yes.
So that would be why Jon Snow is capable of riding a dragon.
Yeah, that would be why, because he's a Targaryen blood, and they make it sound like dragons are extremely smart, and that they can basically sense Targaryen blood. And so there's several scenes in season 7 and 8 where you can tell this dragon is looking at him and says, "You're different. There's something different about you." And so you can tell that they may not know he's Targaryen, but they know that he's okay to let ride them. And I think that's kind of neat, because it's kind of a way of like making Jon Snow himself be like, "Why is this dragon being so nice to me?" But we as the audience already know that he's secretly a Targaryen, which they never did anything with. But hey, whatever, I'm not bitter. Anyway.
Aegon, right?
Yep.
Another Aegon.
Aegon, what is this, the 4th? 5th?
I
or
don't know. A
something.
lot of them.
I don't remember. There's just a lot of them at this point.
How many Targaryens are there?
Depends how many fuck each other, I suppose. um, but no, the fight with so essentially episode 3 ends with Daemon getting a letter from his brother after being convinced to after Viserys was convinced to help his brother in the stepping stones over the crab feeder problem. He eventually sends him this nice letter, basically saying we're going to send help, and I should have supported you sooner. And I think he might have said he was going to send a dragon too, or am I wrong?
I'm not sure about that, but I do know that Daemon basically said, "Fuck you, I don't need you."
Yeah. It was all like, oh, we're going to send 3,000 troops, blah, blah. And Daemon, without a single fucking word, just kind of holds it and he's like, hmm. And then he beats the fucking messenger to death. I don't know if he dies for
Yeah.
sure, but like, he's close at least.
Don't shoot the messenger traditionally, but in that situation, I understand the anger.
I understand it to an extent too, because like if it's like you say, and it skipped like 3 years, this dude's been fighting for 3 fucking years. He is covered in blood, sweat, and tears. He is disgusting looking. You can tell he has been through some shit at this point. And he receives this letter, and he's like, "Oh no! Now I have to 1v1 this. There's no way."
Yep.
And that is
This is
such a
the
cool fight.
episode when Daemon becomes everyone's favorite character. It's
If he
episode
wasn't
3.
already.
If he wasn't already, he probably will be at the end of episode
Oh
3.
yeah, 100%.
Also,
I
Matt
love it.
Smith, a handsome guy, but very unsettling. The way that they have presented him in this
Mm-hmm.
show, very unsettling.
Well, you may not know this. I don't know if you're a fan or not, but there's scenes where he's like that in Doctor Who too, where
Are there?
100%, he is phenomenal in that show. That's why I was so excited for this. There's he's this happy-go-lucky doctor most of the time, but like there's this darkness there where once he loses his temper or something happens to make him want to lose his temper, um, off topic, but I'll do it super briefly. There's a scene where someone he loves is kidnapped, and he essentially calls in all the favors that he had racked up over his time as being the doctor to get them back, and it is a very quick siege. We're talking minutes, and every one of his enemies is defeated. And he goes into the like main control room, and they basically start threatening him and say, "You're a good man. You won't kill all of us." And he said it's against your. They said it's against your rules. And there's just this moment where you just see the switch flip. Like he goes full Damon in this scene where he just says something like, "What was it?" He said, "Rules. Good men don't have rules. Today is not the day to find out why I have so many. Don't question me again." And it's phenomenal. You really should watch it. He's very good in that show. But
Matt Smith is all around a very good actor. He does very well in House of the Dragon as well.
he's a very good actor. I love seeing him and stuff. Unfortunately, he hasn't picked all that great of things to be in, but this is a home run for me. But anyway, yeah, the battle ends essentially with Daemon fucking up the crab feeder horribly. We don't even see it, but he just drags his lifeless body out of that cave after essentially 1v1ing everybody until his friends come to save him.
He fakes a surrender and then calls in dragons.
Mm-hmm. He
No
he
better
gets
way
on
to
his
win a fight
knees.
than to
He
have
has his
dragons.
sword all like this, like here, take it, and that is 100% not what happens. Um, Such a good fight. You are right though. I think we might get one more fight, but I think it'll just be this.
I don't appreciate that we didn't get to see the crab feeder's death. But it is what it is. It was
I can
still a really cool
understand.
fight.
I can understand why that would upset you because that ending to episode 2, yeah, episode 2, was very cool. Because, like, they made it seem like this just horrendous monster. You're like, what the fuck? Who is this guy?
Yeah. And you don't really get any more than that. They present him
He
as some sort of real threat to the throne. He's a real piece of shit, and he feeds people to crabs, which is pretty
I
pretty
mean,
sick.
he was
And
nailing people to
that's
crosses
all
and
you
letting him
get.
get eaten by crabs. So like, yeah, that's a pretty big threat, I think. Um,
That's all you get though. That's all you get on the crab feeder. Just that small amount of information, and then next thing you know, he's
he is
out of the
dead.
picture, and you don't even get to see the fight.
He doesn't even say a line in the whole thing. He doesn't talk.
That's true. He doesn't. It's true.
Kind of like another villain at the end of the Long Night who didn't say a word the whole time. Anyway, um, but anyway, it ends with that. The next episode is. I actually just watched this one, so I watched that today, yesterday.
I watched it 20 minutes ago, 30 minutes ago.
Oh, I meant episode 4.
Oh, episode 4 I did watch last week.
Yeah, I did not.
Episode 4 was very, very good.
It
The
might be my
long-awaited
favorite.
incest. The long-awaited incest. Everybody knew it was going to happen eventually. They're Targaryens, after all.
uh, yeah, pretty much. So basically, they are going. So the king sends Rhaenyra on a quest, essentially. Not a quest. That's the wrong word. On a tour to essentially find a husband. They set her up with all these other men, and they start talking to her, and they're either too old, which is weird, or too young, which is basically you're like 10 and you want to get married. Like, no, I'm not doing it.
Or just too rapey.
Or too rapey, or all of the above, as is custom in Game of Thrones. Please watch this show. I swear it's good. We're joking, but it's a phenomenal show. Both
I
of them
don't
are.
know how you're too young, too old, and too rapey at the same time, but
Well,
I
you know what
mean,
I'm. Well, you know what I meant. Like too old and too rapey, or in Joffrey's case, too young and too murdery. Like
murdery and rapey.
murdery and rapey. Yeah. Dear God,
Murder, rapey.
I'm still remembering the time that Tyrion sent him hookers and he just fucking
Yeah,
kills
with
them.
the crossbow. Yeah. Yeah.
That is fucked up. But
Murder, rapey.
yeah, what's even more messed up is he really enjoyed that. But um, no. So episode 4 starts off with her on tour, to a to basically going around Westeros and beyond, actually, to find her a husband. And during said time, she returns kind of early because she just can't deal with this. I don't blame her to an extent, but she should have kept going. And then our boy, Daemon Targaryen, returns.
Yeah, I mean, I get why she left. It was kind of one of those, nobody really wants to be betrothed, but she's like, fuck you, I'm the heir to the throne. Like, you're not just gonna auction me off. Like, I'm more than that, which is completely reasonable.
Right, it really is. It's completely understandable, and it gets even funnier when when Daemon comes back, and him and his brother are not really on good terms, by the way. The only reason they're slightly on good terms is because Viserys did reach out and did offer Daemon some help. And again, though, Daemon said, "Fuck you, I don't need it. I'm gonna win," and they named him King of the Narrow Sea, which I think is a cool name, by the way. Um, they probably
Yeah,
would. They probably would name him a king too. Like if especially the people that saw that, they would tell stories. That's how Game of Thrones works. Is they see battles like this and they tell stories and it changes over time to become this more grand than it is, even though it was pretty
one
awesome.
one thing that's really cool about Daemon as a character is he really seems like the main villain of the show until you get him around Viserys, and then you remember that he's not the main villain of the show. He's not necessarily a bad guy. He's just acting out of personal gain, like every other character in Game of Thrones ever.
There's several scenes, especially in the first like 2 episodes, where you can very clearly tell that without question, Daemon would kill whoever is necessary to save his brother.
Yes.
because there's a couple scenes in the beginning with Viserys' wife dying where Rhaenyra's being kind of cold and Daemon says, "Look, your father needs you right now more than he ever has," and comforts them both at the funeral. And then there's a scene in episode 2 where Corlys kind of says something out of line, and he's like, "I can talk about my brother however you like. You may, however I like. You may not."
Yeah.
And honestly, that's kind of how family is. Like, I would make fun of you to your face 100%, but like if someone says something out of line to you, I'd be like, okay, now I can say that, but I don't know if I think that you can say that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that makes Damon such a good character is that he is very compassionate at times, but he's also a ruthless, cold-blooded killer.
Right, 100%. There's several scenes where you see him covered in blood because of shit that he's done.
And he does not care. He at the beginning, or at well, that's jumping ahead. We'll get to episode 5 in a second. We're not done with this
Right,
one yet.
we're almost there though, but oh, maybe we're not. We got to talk about the incest. But you know what? Real quick, I want to something I just thought of that's really funny. I desperately want to see Braun. Obviously, it'll never happen, but I desperately want to see Braun and Damon go like hang out together at a brothel.
Yeah, those are two. Those are two very similar characters. Braun is potentially my favorite character in Game of Thrones, so it would be a fun watch.
Tyrion's like, "Oh, that castle is impregnable." Braun's like, "Give me 10 good men, I'll impregnate the bitch."
Somebody's got to.
Somebody's got to.
I choose Braun, and
The
so
thing
does
is,
everyone
too,
else.
you see Braun fight multiple times, and you're like, "Oh yeah, that's the man you want to try. You want to have try to break into this castle."
Absolutely, Braun's great. Damon's great as well.
But
I'm excited to see more Damon.
me too. Um, so episode 4 essentially surrounds the family kind of getting back together. Damon coming back into the fold. He doesn't really seem to have any ulterior motives in the beginning. He kind of just wants to hang out at first, anyway, and I believe that that's what he was intending. I suppose. Uh, Damon had a lot of character development in this episode, actually, at least in my opinion, because there's kind of a lot to it. Uh, but essentially, he's talking with his family. Viserys and him kind of make up a little bit. They're drinking together, having fun. Everything seems nice. Um, Rhaenyra seems kind of annoyed by her dad not really paying attention to her during like the feast and stuff. At least that's the vibe I got.
Yeah. Ever since the second name day, even though Viserys told Rhaenyra that he wasn't going to unname her as heir, she's still kind of been a cunt the whole time. She's been really. I mean, she seriously kind of acts like a 12-year-old that didn't get her way for multiple episodes. For those 2 episodes, rather.
Yeah, I kind of get why, but at the same time, let's see episodes 3 and 4. No, you're right. You're right. That would be. I guess I have a different perception because I watched it today. But
Well, I guess rather in the beginning of episode 4, Rhaenyra is being a
yeah,
12-year-old who didn't get her
hmm
way, and then by the end of episode 4, she's just trying to get laid. You know,
and being a true Targaryen,
well, the
but
whole second half of the episode, Rhaenyra is just trying to get laid.
it. Okay, so there's a lot to discuss with episode 4. Maybe we should have done episode 4. Shit, I can't believe I waited a week to watch this. So what happens is Damon basically like sneaks Rhaenyra these clothes to wear, to escape in, so that she can see the city and stuff like that of King's Landing, and gives her a letter and all this other shit. So they go and hang out. They look like they're having fun. Honestly, it looks like a fun time. They're going to brothels and stuff, or not brothels, taverns and shit first, and then eventually they find themselves in a pleasure house.
There's a
Um,
whole festival.
mhm.
There's a whole festival they go to,
Yeah,
complete with, play where they talk about how everybody in the streets talks about how they want Aegon to be heir. You know,
yeah.
nobody really likes Rhaenyra. The civilians, that is.
Yeah, and she doesn't really get it. She's basically saying, "Who cares what they think?" And Damon is like, "Well, you need to care because these are the people. Like, you got to keep in mind if the city hates you." He didn't say this exactly, but he's just like, "The city can't hate you. Your job's gonna be a lot worse."
Yeah.
Um, he didn't say this exactly, but he was strongly hinting that like you need to have their support. Um,
There's only so many members of the King's Guard.
yeah, and there was almost one less, but we're gonna get to that in a minute. Uh, so essentially, episode 4, they're kind of hanging out, partying. They end up in a pleasure house. For those of you that know Game of Thrones, you already know probably what happens here.
A brothel with no money.
That
Just freaky shit.
is that's such an uncomfortable experience. I could never even walk in there, honestly. Like a brothel is one thing because there's like at least I assume based on Game of Thrones, there's like private rooms and stuff like that. This is just like one big, giant open room where people are just fucking like,
One giant orgy where nobody switches.
and no one even looks at who it is. It's so funny to me that both of their faces were exposed in there, and not one person inside the brothel said anything or pleasure house
Yep,
said
nobody
anything.
notices.
Nobody noticed or cared. And one or two of them were probably like, "Oh, it's not the first time we've seen two Targaryens in here."
Probably not.
Probably hasn't.
Probably not.
And so,
Damon had to find out about it somehow.
yeah. And so what happened here is Damon's basically just showing her the place, and they start to have some sexual tension between each other. And Rhaenyra seems insanely into this at first. And
Yeah, she's losing her mind. She's rebellious.
and he also seems insanely into this at first. But to his credit, I don't know if it's credit. I don't know what word I should use.
It's
but
not credit.
I don't know what word I
I don't
should
know.
use.
I don't know where you're going with this, but credit is definitely not correct.
Credit is not the right word, but I was just gonna say, as a plus to his character, he didn't go through with the fucked up thing, and I'm glad. It's just one of those things where like he did something insanely fucked up in the beginning. So they start kissing and doing stuff, clothes start coming off, and then he kind of just stops and leaves. I was a little confused by this at first because I kind of felt like he was really going to.
There's debate as to whether or not there was penetration.
I don't think there was, but
It depends on who you talk to. I've talked to a couple people who are fully convinced that there was. Fully convinced.
I don't think there
cannot
was
convince
this
them
time.
otherwise.
Her clothes were like, even when he like ran off and left, her clothes were still mostly off. So I could see either one, but I don't think there was penetration. I still think it's fucked up though. But either way, it's messed up. But
Either way, it's incest.
yeah, either way, it's very Targaryen of them.
Consensual. And originally, I thought it was kind of rapey, but Rhaenyra was into it, so consensual.
Into it is a light way of putting it too. I want to point that out. This girl 100% wanted that.
She seems very, very confused at times.
Yes, and she's also a kid, so in one hand, I understand it. But then there's something really fucked up that happens after this. So she runs basically home after Damon just ditches her there, which is really fucked up, and just goes and gets the same whore that he was claiming to marry at one point. And that was interesting. So Rhaenyra goes back home, and she she lures her Kingsguardman, Kristen Cole, which is the guy that she chose at one point, actually. And I called this, by
Sir
the way.
Kristen Cole.
Sir Kristen Cole, my bad. I called this, by the way. I said that they were probably going to do something. But I wasn't 100% until now. And she basically convinced him to fuck her, essentially.
Rhaenyra gets her wish. At the end of the episode, she gets laid. She
Yeah.
worked very hard for it. Half the episode.
Yeah. And So it's how should I put this? Sorry, I'm trying to remember exactly what happened here. It's kind of a lot to remember. So someone sees Damon and Rhaenyra leaving the pleasure house and reports that to the Hand of the King. Now the Hand of the King tells this to the king. King doesn't believe it at first, but I think deep down he kind of knows that Damon very much is into incest, because there's a line in episode 1, I think, where a whore's like having trouble getting Damon to like, doing things with her, and she even says, "Would you like for me to put on a blonde wig? Would that help?" And so I think it's very clear that this man is very much into incest.
Yeah, I mean, he's Targaryen. All of them are into it.
I don't know about all of them though.
All of them
Viserys definitely isn't. He's pretty disgusted by this.
that you know of.
That's true. You're right. That's fair.
He's mad because it's his daughter.
That's a fair ass point. You're right. I'm just saying.
If it was his cousin and Daemon, do you think Viserys would care? Because I feel like he wouldn't.
I feel like he wouldn't either. You're probably right.
The Targaryens are weird. They view incest as okay, and in fact, I guess they view it preferred.
They usually do.
In the family,
they'll straight up marry each other, not just.
They consider it a purer bloodline.
It's very strange. You're right. But no, King denies it, but you can tell he kind of knows. At one point, and he essentially beats the shit out of Damon. Like, just starts kicking him when he's brought in from the brothel on the floor and all this other stuff. Basically tells him to leave, and he does.
He does. Goes back to the Vale where his original wife is. He was banished there, to be fair.
Yes. And the maester brings in a bit of tea for Rhaenyra, saying it will rid her of any consequences.
Morning after tea.
Yep. Essentially. And I'm sure you get...
They can't figure out diabetes, but they can figure out a morning after pill, damn it.
Yeah, makes sense. I guess. And that's how the episode ends, and you're like, damn. Honestly, that was my favorite episode so far. It's shocking when you hear what we're explaining, but like, it was written so insanely well and shocking to an extent. It was such a good episode. And
I didn't know you were that into incest, but whatever floats your boat.
But I'm not.
Oh, man, you're the one who chose the incest episode as your favorite episode.
Because it was a great episode. It doesn't mean I like incest.
My favorite episode so far is probably episode 5. I would say definitely episode 5.
Which we are getting to now. So episode 5 begins with Daemon seeing his wife that we've heard so much shit about the whole time. And she is not on screen very long.
She's not on screen very long. But it is in the Vale, and the Vale is a cool little kingdom in its own right. And
it is.
The Game of Thrones series. So I was excited to see the Vale, even if it was not the castle, but rather just the wilderness.
The place itself is just neat looking. It reminds me of... you have to dig deep in your memory to probably remember this, but it reminds me of Gondor from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
That's kind of the vibe I get off of it.
Yeah, probably filmed in New Zealand. Who knows? Not me.
This show is probably a lot easier for them to film because it was all in probably one place.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where they're filming this show at. It's a good... So I will look that up after we are done with this.
Yeah. I don't know. This is probably a lot easier than Game of Thrones. There was like 5 or 6 locations they had to do. Can you imagine? Like, half the cast probably didn't even meet each other until the final season. Well, they probably met, but like, they never filmed together. Yeah.
Daenerys wasn't involved in any scenes anywhere near King's Landing.
Anywhere near Jon Snow. She was in completely polar opposite places the whole time.
Right.
So episode 5 begins with I was looking away because for a second, so I missed part of this. Did he push her off the horse, or I'll have you explain this part?
I couldn't really tell what happened with the horse. It almost looked like he stabbed the horse and the horse bucked her off.
Right. It
So
just
I'm not really sure why the horse bucked her off, but the
I didn't
horse
see
bucked her
it.
off.
I didn't see a knife or anything. The only reason I'm bringing it up is because I'm not entirely sure if he's to blame or not, because he didn't say a damn word the whole time.
Oh, he's 100% to blame. It was 100% intentional. It was a power play.
Yeah, that was fucked up. You're right. His comment later on does make it pretty clear that yeah. So, which by the way, I'm a little curious as to why he didn't. I mean, she wasn't like. I mean, it sounds strange to say, but like she was pretty. I thought. I don't know what his issue was. He made it sound like she was just like some ugly sheep or something. It was really weird.
Doesn't really give him a path to the throne, though, does it?
No, but it was just strange. Um. So anyway, I'll have you take over a little bit as to what happens in the episode because this is your favorite, so I'm gonna let you talk a little bit.
After Damon dispatches of his wife, you don't see him again for a very long time. At the end of episode 4, Viserys told Rhaenyra that he was marrying her off to, what is his name?
Child of Corlys, Valyrian child.
The Valyrian kid.
The
They say his name multiple times in the episode, and I watched it 30, 40 minutes ago,
Yeah.
and I still can't remember it for the life of me.
There's so many names in this show that it's hard to remember. It really is.
I have to look it up because I'm gonna say his name multiple times.
Yeah. Laenor, that's right.
It's Laenor. Laenor is.
I kind of like him too.
Yeah,
Seems
Laenor
nice.
seems cool.
Seems likable.
Viserys tells Rhaenyra that she's getting married off to Laenor,
And she has to deal with it.
And suck it up. Like, you did your tour, you didn't pick anybody, it's my turn now, you're betrothed. Rhaenyra hates that. Kind of. She makes her peace with it in the 5th episode. It really seems like she hates it in the 4th and in the beginning of the 5th. But she kind of makes her peace with it because she makes a deal with Laenor that they're gonna get married and everything, but it's fake.
It's basically going to be, you're going to get me pregnant. However we do that is fine, and then we're pretty much just not going to talk to each other.
Basically exactly what Robert Baratheon did with Cersei.
Yep. Only less alcoholism.
Yeah, less alcohol. Well, I mean, TBD.
TBD, you're right. But I doubt he's going to become a fat Baratheon with a warhammer.
But Viserys also strikes a deal with Corlys. That's his name, yeah? Corlys? Lord Corlys?
Yes, Corlys. About the name of House Targaryen and Valyrian, yep.
Yeah, he basically tells Corlys that he will marry Rhaenyra to Laenor, and their child can bear the name Valerian until they take the throne. Once they take the throne, they're Targaryen. Viserys is basically like, look, dude, I'm not giving up the throne. My family's name is going to be attached to it for hundreds of years, and there's nothing you can do about it. Say yes or no right now. And Corlys is like, look, that's fine. I still married in. I'm still going to be treated well. Lots of feasts and all. And maybe Corlys will be able to avoid the diabetes. Viserys does not. Unfortunate.
He basically gives in because he's just like, look, this guy is not budging. The Targaryens are strong people. They do not... This throne is theirs, then they're not letting it go, period.
Cut your losses, take what you can.
Take what you can get. You're honestly lucky he came back. It's kind of how it is.
Yep,
So
there's lots of conversation in the fifth episode about the marriage, um, and also Otto Hightower, banished from the city,
yes, I
removed
forgot to
his hand
mention
to the
that.
king at the end of the fourth episode. Can't believe we forgot to talk about that.
There's so much to
Viserys
talk about.
basically tells him that he doesn't believe his informant, and he doesn't think that his advice is sound, and he thinks that it's been motivated by personal gain for too long, and he removes him as hand of the king, and the new guy that he picks is not, like, he's not known very well yet.
He
I
seems
think
like a
his
good
last name is
guy.
Strong.
Yeah, he seems like a good guy, but he's not like he doesn't have that many scenes, so we don't really know a whole lot about him.
He
Um,
seems like he gives sound advice so far.
he makes sense. He doesn't seem like manipulative or anything. He asks him a question, he gives him an honest answer.
He'll keep Viserys from getting Julius Caesar, at least.
We'll see. Because that's my theory. Is I think that he is going to either actually, you know what? That theory is becoming less and less so because it looks like he's gonna die anyway.
It looks like he might die in this episode. That is
I
true.
he might already be dead. Like,
Um, However, Otto Hightower gets kicked out, and the
do you think that's
Queen,
justified? By the way,
Um, yes and no. I think that Otto was working out of personal gain for the majority of his scenes. But then you kind of do get a scene with the Queen, Alicent Hightower, and Otto, where he basically tells her that everything he was trying to get the king to do at the time was completely out of what he felt like was right for the realm.
mm-hmm.
So it kind of it makes it seem more like Otto wasn't necessarily the bad guy that he was made out to be. Um, but you know, to be fair to Otto, his informant was correct. He delivered good information. You know, it wasn't treated that way, but he delivered the right information, and Otto did what he was supposed to do when he told the king.
Right.
Um,
It
but
it's one of those things where he kind of seems like a mix of two characters actually from Game of Thrones, Varys and Littlefinger. I kind of get the vibes of both.
yeah, Otto strikes me more Varys than Littlefinger as we're
Yeah.
talking about it. Because Varys really does try to do what he thinks is right. He's not going to give up his position either, and he's going to make sure he
Ever.
secures that as well.
Right.
And that's kind of how Otto seems. But, you know, Viserys named him as Hand of the King and brought in this separate character. And in that conversation with Otto and Alicent, she's like, I didn't want it to happen this way. And he basically told her that it was her fault. He was
Right.
just like, you know what? If you had just done what I told you to do, if you had just talked to the king the way I told you to talk to him, then none of this would have happened. I'd still be hand to the king. Everything would be fine. But you didn't. You chose Rhaenyra over me, and he basically disowned her. He was like, I hate you. You're not my daughter anymore. You know?
Yeah. I'm wondering.
So,
I don't think he's gone for good at all.
no, he can't be. Not after what happens at the end of the last episode. Which
Yep.
actually, to be fair, we'll get to that in a second.
Right.
But Otto's gone. Proceed marriage. Marriage is what
Marriage takes up
happens.
most of the episode,
Marriage,
actually.
marriage is what brings us
Marriage.
together. Okay.
uh,
Um,
so
yeah,
essentially, they,
but
like I said, they strike a deal uh, with each other because Laenor, right?
Lenore.
Laenor Valyrian is gay, and he has a boyfriend and
Feel
everything like that,
dudes.
which is fine. It doesn't really matter, and she doesn't really care either. She basically says, "Look, we have to make a kid or kids plural, whatever, because kingdom. But other than that, you can do whatever you want." And they both agree to
She's
this
like,
agreement.
look, She was like, "Look, you like dudes, I like my uncle. Like, all's well."
Which
But
brings up a very tragic part for one of my more favorite characters now, uh, is Kristen Cole, because he has a
Sir
lot in this
Kristen Cole.
episode. Hmm.
Yep, Sir Kristen Cole. He's not super. He's not super pleased with the marriage.
Good
Rhaenyra's
acting,
like,
by the
look, it
way.
doesn't.
Really good.
Fantastic acting.
Really good.
Uh,
This man is broken.
Rhaenyra basically says, "Look, it doesn't matter. We can just keep doing what we're doing now. I mean, it's already secret." And he's like, "No, like you have to run away with me, otherwise I have no honor."
Well,
And
that
she tells
and
him
he
no.
doesn't want to be like some private whore, and I can understand that.
Yeah, yeah, because he's like, "Look, I love you, you love me. We should run away together." And she basically says, "Fuck off. I'm gonna marry him anyway. Like, we don't need to run away. I'm heir to the throne. Why would I run away with you?" Which is painful for Sir Kristen Cole.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "So basically, what you want me to be is your whore." And she's like, "It's not like that, but and it is. It is like that. That's exactly what it's like."
I think she was more hinting that, like, because she does seem to have feelings for him. I think,
Yeah,
personally, I think she loves him too. But here's the thing. Here's the difference. I think what she was trying to say. I'm not defending her. I think what she said was fucked up. I'm just saying I think what she was trying to say was that I can love you like privately. Like we can be in a relationship just like more of a private one. But the thing is, that's still not okay. Like it's
yeah,
that's not
no,
enough. Like
it's
I don't
not
think
what
he
Sir Kristen
understood
Cole
that,
wants.
but she didn't really say that either. So like it's just it's one of those things where I'm just like, girl, um what do you think he was gonna say? Like
Yeah, it's a tough spot for both of them for sure. But Sir Kristen Cole's not into it. He is not happy about the marriage at all, but there's nothing he can do about it. And shortly after this scene where they do have a breakup, I guess they don't entirely split, but it's like half a breakup. And uh, the Queen goes to question Sir Kristen Cole about what Rhaenyra was doing the night that she and Daemon were spotted by one of Otto's informants. Sir Kristen Cole is basically her personal bodyguard at this point. So if anybody knows where she would be that night, it should be him. Now, the way that she does this is very indirect. She doesn't say what she means. She hints at what she means. And Sir Kristen Cole gets the wrong idea because the same night that she was seen with Daemon was the same night that they banged. So
it was worded very well, by the way. The writing was super good because you see how he could think that that's what she's talking about, but like
absolutely.
she also words it in a way where it could be either one. It was written super well, and I totally liked it a lot.
Yeah, Sir Kristen Cole basically puts himself in timeout. He doesn't get what she's saying because he doesn't know anything about Rhaenyra and Daemon, and he fesses up to sleeping with Rhaenyra, which he's not allowed to do as a member of the Kingsguard.
At all.
You're not
We're
allowed to get
talking
involved.
torture. This man
Yeah.
will be executed if that kind of shit gets out.
Yeah. And that's basically what he says right after he fesses up. He's like, just don't torture me, just be merciful, grant me a swift death. And she says, you can leave. She just basically says, I don't care. Get out.
It's one of those things where I think she could see how broken he was from it. Because you could tell he looked so fucking upset. It was so obvious that he was like a good guy who just kind of made a mistake.
I think she was pissed, because she also now she's in this position where she just had that conversation with her father. She feels like she's chosen Rhaenyra over her father because that's what her father told her she did, and you know, all she's trying to do is help Rhaenyra be the best that Rhaenyra can be, and in Alicent's eyes, she just does everything she can to fuck that up for herself.
Mm-hmm.
So she just, I mean, that probably pissed her off really bad, but not at Sir Kristen's Cole, at Rhaenyra. So the Queen's not happy with Rhaenyra in this episode at all.
Yeah. And now we can get to the wedding.
Yes, the actual wedding. The actual wedding is very good.
Oh, yeah. That's like one of the few times that almost every character in the show that we've seen so far is in one room.
Yep. Jason Lannister comes back.
Asshole.
Just for a little bit, just to be a douche again.
Of course. Naturally.
That seems to be his whole purpose.
Of course.
Very similar to Tywin. His whole purpose is to be a douche.
Tywin had a lot more to him, though.
No, Tywin was a douche. Just a really rich one.
Did you just miss all the, like, political intrigue, the carefully maneuvering around shit, the arranging of the red wedding, like, all this other shit? Are you kidding me? This man had so much behind him.
It's all douchey motive.
I know, but there's a lot more to it than that.
No.
This guy is just an actual douche. Tywin's an actual good character. This guy is just a douchebag.
That's true. Tywin's way better. But the fact of the matter is that Lannisters suck.
Almost always, yes. Tywin,
for the most part, Lannisters suck.
Tyrion's the only good one, and he might not even be a Lannister.
Yeah, who knows? Not me. Anyways, this wedding, you see the return of Daemon, in which he is confronted by somebody from the Vale about his wife's death. Because
he's like, oh no.
the man that's there from the Vale was also, he had offered to ride out with Daemon's wife that day, and she had said, fuck off, I want to ride by myself. And that turned out to be the end of her. That was her bad decision there, because she could have used some backup. However, Daemon denies any culpability, and it was entirely his fault. However, we get to see the wedding between
well, real
Laenor
quick, before you move on, you also forgot that Daemon basically says, well, as her husband, I now inherit the Vale.
Yes, I did forget that. That is very important. Technically, now Daemon is in control of the Vale, which, if according to Game of Thrones, the Knights of the Vale are not a group to be trifled with. Like, they were pretty kick-ass in Game of Thrones.
Daemon is now considered King of the Narrow Sea and King of the Vale.
Lord of the Vale.
Lord of the Vale. Think about that for a minute. This man is now becoming a bit legendary.
They should have called him Aegon.
Right. I wonder if that's where this is going. Him being on the Iron Throne.
He should change his name to Aegon mid-season.
He should.
They're all Aegon. What's the difference?
His middle name will just be Daemon instead. But the actual wedding itself was phenomenally written.
Yes, the actual wedding itself is great. The wedding itself is pretty cool, complete with the dances that they do before the feast, previous to the wedding. King Viserys rises to give a speech, and he's also not overly enthused with Daemon's presence, just to add on there. Not super glad that Daemon showed up at all.
Right.
But he does allow him a seat at the table, and that's another one of those scenes where when Daemon walks in, you're like, oh yeah, Daemon's the bad guy for the show. Here he is in front of the king. And then the king accepts him at the table, and, you know, they don't get into a fight, and you remember that Daemon's not necessarily the big bad guy of the show. Like, he's still royal blood, he's still involved, it still seems like he cares about House Targaryen.
And loyal. He's loyal to the throne.
So
like
far.
His brother. Like the Targaryens,
So
I mean.
far.
Like his family.
Yeah.
Like, he would... If someone said, "Hey, this person's plotting to kill your brother," they're gonna be dead by morning.
Mm-hmm.
That's just who Damon is, and that's what makes you like him.
Absolutely. And King Viserys starts making a toast or giving a speech, whichever way you want to look at it.
Right.
And in the middle of said speech, Queen Alicent Hightower walks in. She's fashionably late, and she is dressed entirely in green, which is very significant. And if you're not paying attention, you will miss it. And I was wondering if you had missed it, because I'm assuming you did not.
No, I didn't. They did talk about
Where-
it. I was listening.
Where Alicent Hightower is from, they have a lighthouse or a large lamp of some sort. And when they light it green, they're calling their bannermen to arms. So Alicent Hightower walks in late, dressed in entirely green.
Mm-hmm.
And they hint that she's sending a message to her homeland, Oldstone? Is that where she's from? Old Town?
And they say outright, "We stand with you, princess." And they're very subtle about it. I think a lot of people probably missed it.
Yeah. If you're not paying attention, you will miss it. It is kind of subtle. When she walked in and everybody froze, I didn't quite understand the significance until they said something about the Bannermen. And then I was like, oh my god. Like, we're reaching full on Game of Thrones right now.
It was so subtle, I think most people missed it.
And Alicent Hightower, she's such a good character so far. She's really done nothing but what she sees as right. And in this episode, she has a reason to deviate from that path. And now she's acting out of personal gain. So those seem to be the two paths that do what?
You think the king noticed?
Absolutely. Because she walked in the middle of his speech like that, because his face changes. He's clearly happy to be there. He's giving this speech. Spirits are high. And she walks in the middle of it, and you watch his face change. Like, I literally had to get something out of the oven in 1 minute, and I paused right as his face changed, just so I didn't miss who was walking in, and I wanted to see the whole thing all the way through. You know what I mean? I wasn't even trying to pause again in a minute. I was like, I'm going to watch the rest of this whole episode. As soon as his face changed, I knew it was something nuts. And it was. It's unexpected. It's very Game of Thrones-esque. And it's going to be fucking cool.
Mm-hmm. These next couple episodes are going to slap. I really think so.
Really hard. Really hard.
They're going to slap. I really think so. I cannot describe enough how excited I am for the Game of Thrones universe at this point, because they're starting to make it seem like they're hiring the right people to write this show. You know what I mean? Like, I think I think they get it now. I think they listened. And
if you were to take a whole universe or a whole fandom and just, they're doing it so well that if they continue on this course, it will undoubtedly become my favorite series, like my favorite universe, my favorite fandom. It's just so good. Game of Thrones itself is absolutely fantastic. And then House of the Dragon so far just keeps getting better and better. Yeah. It drags a little bit on episode 3, which, now that we have 5 episodes, it doesn't matter anymore. But when I had to wait a week, I was a little concerned. Right. I was like, oh no, maybe this isn't going to go the way I want it to. And then episode 4 and 5 hit so fucking hard.
They really do. This show slaps. Everyone needs to watch this. I assume if you got to this fucking point, we just spoiled the whole damn thing, aside from the ending of episode 5. But, just watch this show, okay? It's really good.
It's fantastic.
It is the best thing going right now. Yes, I stand by that.
Undoubtedly. I don't know, though. She-Hulk.
Don't care.
So She-Hulk's not great.
It might be good, but I haven't even watched it, and I will fight you to the death over that. This show is better.
For another time, though. For another time. However, ending to episode 5,
Mm-hmm.
you do get another scene with Daemon and Rhaenyra. And I definitely thought, here she is. She's already got a good lay in Sir Criston Cole. I mean, I'd bang that dude. He's a good lay.
It's a
Okay.
good lay.
And then he's a good lay. And then you got Laenor, who she says multiple times is gonna be a good husband and a good what were they calling him? King something. What was the next word? King, except not on the Iron Throne.
Kingsguard?
No.
Who are you talking about?
Laenor.
Oh,
place that
King
Laenor is
Regent or
taking.
something? Or King...
It's not King Regent. It starts with a C. It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, he's not going to be on the throne. He's the queen. Rhaenyra's the king.
He's the bottom. Both in his
Yeah, he's the
relationship
bottom.
and his relationship with
Rhaenyra's the
Rhaenyra.
top. Yes. In both
On
aspects.
both.
Basically, there's a scene with Daemon and Rhaenyra where I really thought that she was going to be like, screw you, buddy. Like, get the fuck out of here. I'm not interested in incest anymore. But that's not entirely
It does
the
not
case.
seem like that's what her reaction was.
He basically says, like, hey, I just killed my wife. What if you just, call it off and we'll get married instead? And she's like, you know what? If you want it so bad, then kill everybody in this room and take me back to Dragonstone. Like, she just basically challenges this dude to massacre the entire room, including Sir Criston Cole. So I don't know where her point was. I don't know if she just underestimated Daemon, because keep in mind, this dude wrecked an entire island. So like, I mean, if you give him a challenge, he just might kill everyone in the entire room. He's probably capable.
He's probably capable for most of them.
I
do not think for a minute that he could win.
I don't know, dude.
Criston
can beat him. A dragon into the side of a building.
That's true, but Criston could beat him though. And
oh yeah, well he does.
So you have Criston and everyone else. He loses.
Don't forget, in the first episode, Sir Criston Cole
beats his ass. Criston even says that too. He's like, "Oh, I'm the one that knocked you on your ass."
Yeah.
And even Daemon's like, okay, all right, this guy's got sass.
Besides the point, Rhaenyra entertains Daemon for about half a second, and it would have gone a little further, but something happens.
Yep.
Off to the side, Laenor and his counterpart. I don't know his name.
I don't remember either. I don't think they even said it. Who cares?
But Laenor's significant other. Yes. Laenor's significant other basically just takes one look at Sir Criston Cole and is like, Rhaenyra's fucking that dude. And he's spot on.
He's right. I get why he said that, but...
It's pretty uncanny. I think it's really funny that nobody really knows
except
anything.
Him.
And then he just kind of like takes one look at Sir Criston Cole and is like, oh, it's definitely that dude. I don't know if he was like, he's definitely the hottest of the Kingsguard, so it's probably him. But with him being her own personal bodyguard and such, basically they figure it out, and he approaches Sir Criston Cole.
Kind of blackmails him a little bit.
A little bit. He basically tells Sir Criston Cole, and honestly, I don't think it's a bad play. It's a good move to just like try to be on the same page to Sir Criston Cole. He basically says, look, Rhaenyra and Laenor came to an agreement. You're aware of that? I'm aware of that. I know that you're her lay, and I'm telling you that I'm his. So, we need to make sure that we don't tell anybody about this. Basically says, if my secret comes out, so does yours. So keep it in check. And Sir Criston Cole, who has just slowly been crumbling throughout the whole episode, has a complete mental break and beats this man to death with his hands.
Like hard.
Like
at first you don't know what's happening. At first you don't know what's happening. You kind of think it's like from Daemon kissing Rhaenyra or something. But then people start like freaking out, and you're like, "Wait, that's not how people would react to that. They'd be like, what the fuck's going on? And you think maybe Damon hit somebody or something, but no, it was Kristen Cole beating this dude to death.
And what happens with Rhaenyra? Does she get kidnapped?
Yeah, someone just like grabs her and gets her out of there. I forget
Who
who.
was that?
I don't
Was
know,
he
but
somebody
Viserys
that was
said
with
get her
the
out of there, and
Kingsguard?
someone grabs her and weaves through the crowd and gets
Okay.
her out.
Okay. That was my question, as I couldn't quite figure out whether or not Rhaenyra was being kidnapped or if she was just being taken to safety. If Viserys said such, then she's probably just being taken to safety.
Yeah,
But
she's been taken to
removed.
safety.
She's removed from the situation entirely.
Well, she's definitely
And
not
Daemon-
kidnapped because there's a scene where she actually gets married, like just after this, and she's fine.
Yeah, that's a good point. In my brain, that was before this, but it's definitely not. You're correct. Damon just slips into the shadows, like a good villain would. And Sir Kristen Cole beats Laenor's significant other to death. We're talking no more eyeball. Right
There
side
is
of
a
his face is mud.
his face is curved inward,
Yeah, it's really gross.
and I love it.
Very Game of Thrones.
People like
however-
us who have seen the Red Viper of Dorne fight the Mountain, we're already used to this.
Oh my goodness.
This ain't
Yes,
nothing.
the skull crushing.
We've seen worse, I assure you.
Yeah, that scene was so upsetting. He was such a good character.
Yeah.
He could have been so great.
No,
but back to House of Dragon. Laenor and Rhaenyra still get married. Sir Kristen Cole's not having a good time. He chooses suicide. Right before he does it, Alicent Hightower stops him, and that's kind of where the episode ends. Also notable, Viserys starts bleeding from somewhere.
A lot.
A good amount, puddle amount, and keels over at the end of the episode. So Viserys probably dead.
Yeah. And someone else I thought was going to die. I was very convinced that Kristen was going to kill himself.
Oh, yeah.
I was 100% convinced. So what happens, if I can say this part, what happens here is Kristen Cole basically realizes that he is going to be put to death. Or at least that's what he thinks. Which, I get why he would think that. Because if word gets out about what he did to Rhaenyra, he's already dead. But if you topple that with the fact he just murdered someone in the throne room, he's probably dead. I totally get why he did this. He strips off all his armor. He stands in front of the sacred tree. I forget what it's called. I can't.
The God's Wood.
The God's Wood. That's right. He sits in front of it, puts out his sword, stares at the moon for a second, pulls out his knife, and this man's about to stab himself and kill himself, and then Alicent stops him. I don't quite know what's happening here, but it's pretty clear she knows he's a good person and doesn't want him to die. And the episode just ends with Viserys just keeling over, probably dead. And we're talking like the moment they say "I do" in the.
Very convenient.
Yeah, it was a little convenient, but
Convenient
Game of Thrones.
timing.
Game of Thrones does that kind of shit sometimes.
But this is going to set up God knows what. I mean,
dear God, there's so many possibilities.
Could happen.
There's so many possibilities. There's so much to this. Oh, Jesus Christ, there is so much.
So hypothetically, Rhaenyra will be crowned Queen of the Iron Throne, Protector of the Realm, and the Seven Kingdoms.
Don't. There's so many titles. King of the Andals and the First Men.
Yeah. Don't forget the Andals and the First Men.
Ever. Never forget the Andals.
That's not going to sit well. That's not going to sit well with anybody. And that, I'm assuming, is what sets up the rest of probably the whole series.
Yeah. Well, in the next episode, they're switching actors
For
for
Rhaenyra?
Rhaenyra, Alicent, a couple of them.
Really?
Yeah, they're gonna be
See, I
adults.
didn't know
There's
that
there
because
is
I
a
haven't.
significant time jump in this series. I think it happens next episode where we're talking at least 10, 15 years.
That sucks though, because the actress for all the
For Rhaenyra is fantastic. Alicent
and
is
so is the one for
fantastic.
Alicent.
Yeah, she's fantastic too. But it's
Well, it
just
is what it is. But anything goes at this point. It's going to be really cool to see what happens next. I can't wait.
me
I mean,
either.
I've got 7 days to go.
I'm
I
excited.
think there's 10 episodes in the first season.
Yeah, there should be. Yeah,
I
10
think it's
episodes.
10.
Yeah,
I
10
think it's
episodes.
10. So we've still got 5 more.
Right.
And man,
And you can expect 5 more videos for this kind of thing because this one took a lot longer because we had to discuss the whole show up to this point and Game of Thrones. These won't normally be anywhere near this long. So,
yeah, it has been a while. We've been on here for at least an hour.
almost 2.
Oh man, wow.
They won't be anywhere near this long normally, so don't stress too much about it. We had a lot to cover. So, yeah. Oh, God. I'm not sure if I made this part clear or not, but this show to me is also a 9 out of 10. This show is fantastic. It is just awesome.
Mid-season rating 9 out of 10 is solid. Literally the only complaint is that I haven't gotten to see more of any other houses,
Right.
and that can change at any point in time. It's the first 5 episodes.
Like, real quick though, because this is already a long ass fucking video. I'm probably gonna divide it into 2. Is there any spin-off shows that you would like to see?
I don't have any
Because they're talking that Jon Snow one.
spin-off shows that I would want. The Jon Snow show I will watch. Literally anything they could come up with, I will watch. They've got a few that I know they're planning on doing. Like, they've already got 3 or 4 spin-off shows that they're planning on doing. Let me see what they are real quick.
I'd really like to see Aegon's conquering of the Seven Kingdoms. I'd like to see that. The Jon Snow one is basically confirmed. HBO confirmed this, that they're working on it. That's not even like speculation. That's actually happening.
Yes, these are all the Game of Thrones spin-offs currently in development.
Okay.
House of the Dragon is one.
All right.
Another one is titled The Sea Snake, which presumably will follow Corlys.
I don't know how I feel about that one, but all right.
But it is currently in development, so they are making it.
All right.
And I'm assuming that some of these will not have George R.R. Martin involved, because there's no way he would be able to do all of these and also finish the final novel in the Game of Thrones series. He's really getting ahead of himself.
It's not the final one, by the way.
What?
No, there's a Game of Thrones, Clash of Kings, Storm of Swords, Feast for Crows, Dance with Dragons, and those are the ones that are out. But then there's Winds of Winter, and there's supposed to be a book after that called Dream of Spring. And then it's over. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you see why people are mad now? Because not only do you not have the final book, you don't have the next to final book.
Yeah. So, some people who have been fans of Game of Thrones may not be alive when the last book comes out. George R.R. Martin definitely won't be alive when the last book comes out, but he'll do his best. Well, somebody will take over. Somebody's got to.
That happened with the Troy books. I really enjoyed those, but the third one, he died mid-writing, and his wife finished it.
Interesting.
It was actually kind of good, though.
Yeah, I was kind of joking.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm dead serious because that has happened. Um,
Um, Another confirmed in development spinoff is called 10,000 Ships, and 10,000 Ships is supposed to be set 1,000 years before Game of Thrones and would follow Princess Nymeria, who is an ancestor of House Martell.
hmm,
It's about her founding the city of Dorne.
that might be cool. Huh.
Uh, the Jon Snow series is also in development.
They keep making prequels because they're scared of doing anything anywhere near season 8.
But the Jon Snow
It's a
is
sequel, obviously, but
is a sequel,
other than
so
that, they're
that's
just
cool.
like so scared that yeah, no. I totally think the Jon Snow one will slap. Um cuz
There
he's my favorite character. One of
there
my
is
favorite characters.
also um a uh the Tales of Dunk and Egg, which is based off of the books that are uh they're like short stories kinda,
Hmm.
and they're called the Tales of Dunk and Egg, and they're about Duncan the Tall, who is a knight, Sir Duncan the Tall rather, and his squire.
Hmm. Was he Pod the Rod? No, I'm just kidding. I fucking
Um
love Podrick.
well, from what I'm reading here, his squire is potentially very, very, very important. I never read those, but the first
Right.
season is supposed to be an adaptation of the first novella, The Hedge Knight.
Hmm.
So, it's rumored that there will be a series that is set in Flea Bottom, in the slums of King's Landing.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know about
Well,
that.
I mean, any of these shows uh like I said, this episode took a lot more effort because we have a lot to cover, but like overall, this isn't really a whole lot of effort for me, so I don't mind filming these episode things for here. I think it's safe to say I will watch every Game of Thrones show that comes out
Until they are
until they are garbage.
bad.
Until they
Until they
suck.
are bad, I will do the
Like
same.
if there's 3 or 4 spin-off shows, I will watch all of them until one of them starts to suck or something.
Right.
And then I'm not doing it.
And that's going to be a long time.
It'll be a long time. Yeah. But anyway, that is going to be it for this one. And we're going to I'm also going to be doing reviews, individual reviews for Game of Thrones each season. I was going to do a video for that. And I don't know. I don't really know how to end it. So I'm just going to do it that way. And I'm going to edit this video now and get it uploaded as quickly as possible. So I will talk to you guys later. And I appreciate you sticking through us with all this because this was a long video to make.
Yep. Catch you later.
Later, guys.